Hey all, this is Jack from Reloaded, or Monte Cristo on the forums, here to fulfill a promise to do a few tutorials on some of the tricks I use when creating APB customizations. Sorry, my voice is a little bit strange today. I just got back from the dentist, so what better time to do a voiceover on a tutorial, but there it is. So we're just going to be starting to add a few details here. Just simple stuff, just to kind of take the very default face that I was starting with there, just adding a little bit of personality. So real simple things, just nose detail, eye detail, and so on and so forth. Now in the studio we're looking at the character through a fixed point lighting system. When we bring it out here it does tend to change, and that's because we're in a much more real-world simulated lighting setup here. There are lights coming all over the place. And we can see here that the eyes aren't reading as well as they do in the studio. We've got predominantly downlit environment, and some of the light points can be quite bright and bleach us out, and that kind of maybe spoils the effect that we're looking for here. So a few of the things that we do is we're looking to create texture. So here you can see I'm adding freckles. Now, even if I don't want my character to be especially freckly, I'll always add some degree of freckles and moles, even if just slightly. This adds a kind of a layer of texture to the skin that is perhaps not something we would consciously be aware of. But it all builds layer upon layer to create a much more realistic effect. Now, here is where we really start to get into it though. Alright, so yes, I'm adding eyeshadow to this male character. I'm not planning on auditioning for the Rocky Horror with him. What we're doing here is we've just turned this right up, so it's very dark, and I'm actually heading towards eyeshadow number 18. This is the one I tend to favour as the spread is pretty even. And then what we do is we can just fade that right back. Now, in this example, I'm actually going to overcook this a little bit, just so you can see the effect a little bit more. Similarly, we do this with eyeliner as well. Whack it all the way up to just full opacity, put on like either a dark brown or a black, and again we just sort of fade that back. Now when we see the character in the environment now, his eyes are popping a lot more, right? So we're much more drawn to those now. They're drawn out a lot better. And this is kind of the sort of the base principle of what we're doing here. We're trying to get those details in that make the face a lot more readable, that the character of the face comes through. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add some stubble to him. I tend to favour the heavy stubble here. This comes on by default very dark. Now in the case of this Caucasian male here, this is a bit too strong, not what I'm looking for at this particular time. So here I'm adding a kind of a more of a flesh tone to the stubble, and this then fades back the stubble, making the face already start to feel a little bit more lived in. But it's still a little bit flat for all that. So the real fundamental to what we're doing here is we're going to start adding tattoos. Now there are quite a lot, obviously, in the vinyl set. The ones you're looking for really are the gradient here. This is the most useful one. The cloud gradient in that same panel is also pretty good. When you apply a tattoo, it is a multiply effect, so it defaults to white, a symbol, and so we don't see it unless we switch it to body paint. So what we have to do is we have to darken that back. Now I'm going to be using, first of all, in this example, it's really a matter of taste. But here what I'm doing is I'm just taking the gradient circle, using a sort of dark brown, fading that back, and I'm just going to use it to just sort of define the cheekbones of this character a little bit. This should help draw kind of focus more to the sort of the front of the face a little bit. Makes that a little bit more defined. But it starts to get more interesting now when we start adding red. So again, I've added red. The opacity of this symbol is up farther than we will leave it at. But balancing it is really all a matter of taste. So we just got to try and find that right sort of projection angle. Try and minimize breakage in the projection as much as possible. And here what we're doing is we're simulating the idea of sort of the blood vessels in the nose and the face. Now, We can overcook that effect if we want to make our character seem like a drinker. If you notice, if you look at Ty Durrant, the Praetorian contact, he's got quite a red nose, I seem to recall, because he's a bit of a beer fan. In the case here, not so much. Going to add a little bit of red to the cheeks as well, just really more illustrative of what I'm talking about. But you can really start to see already the colour in the face is really starting to make it come to life a lot more, and those eyes are now a lot more defined and a lot more engaging. And so generally your character will tend to have more presence. Now, of course, how you decide to dress them obviously is part of that effect. We'll look at some of the tricks I use with clothing in a later tutorial. So here, just working with more gradients, putting a little bit more color in the face, working on the forehead area. Right, so moving on, what we're going to do now is start using some of the more linear symbols to create wrinkles. There are all sorts that we could go with here. These ones up in the top right can be quite useful for this one particularly. But the one I prefer here is the Calligraphy Curl 3. This is my favourite one for this particular task. Now this character's frowning quite a bit, so it makes sense to kind of play on that side of him. So again, working at a sort of a strong opacity first of all, just to get the positioning right. And here we're just working with scale tools, the skew tools, the rotate tools, just to kind of draw through kind of where we feel the wrinkles would appear in this case. The randomization of that is obviously what makes our guy unique. And actually, if you study sort of very strong facial features of celebrities, you'll see if you're really going for a good likeness, often this will be the technique that will get you there. So here, just sort of drawing out the lines as well, making it look like he hasn't really slept all that well recently. He kind of has this slightly haunted, hunted look about him. He just can't let go of his past. Anyway, the idea is that this character is now starting to pop. He is starting to become a character that is a character in his own right and not just a customization. So once we've done that, we're going to go out into the real world environment and have a look and see how that's reading. Just fading back the eyeshadow a little bit more. And here we go. We can see already this is starting to read. So the color is readable. And this is a pretty bad lighting situation right here. We're top lit down. But we can see some of that color starting to pop. Last thing I'm going to do for this particular case is I'm going to put lipstick all over him. And yep, same sort of drill as before. Again, we're not going to be putting it on super strong. This is using the number 2 lipstick, which is the lip outline, just to draw the mouth out a little bit. Now that I've done that, I find I'm not overly happy with the mouth shape, so just going to work with a few things there, play with different lip detail options. And again, also sort of playing with the lip size there. Let's give him a bit of a sort of a sulking look about him, kind of play along with that whole look of disdain that he has. He's not happy. The Cupid look and the thin slider are quite good for that, just kind of making him frown a little bit. So yeah, he looks very serious. He's got a firm set jaw, and he's going to go out and fight crime now in his pants. But yeah, as you can see, moving around the varied lighting environment, he tends to sort of be a bit more imposing. The eyes are really showing through particularly, and the colour on the cheeks is also coming through. Now we can take a look in a minute at a sort of a before and after shot, and you'll see quite a distance between where we were and where we are now. So now if we can combine this with a good outfit design, we'll have ourselves a pretty good looking character. So if we take a look at the before and after, you can see that we've really come quite a long way in not very much time. And these are the kinds of effects that all the contacts have applied to them. We'll look at some of the other effects, such as tattooing and some of the tricks to make interesting clothing designs as well later. But for now, I think that'll do you, and hopefully you can go away and practice some of that stuff, and hopefully that's been of some use. So yeah, we'll do another tutorial soon. This is Jack Reloaded signing out.